In the last part, Lloyd was accused of stealing from the royal treasury and defrauding the Queen. We see the Queen in both the parties. The Queen gives the first chance to speak to the guild, and the guild leader tells the Queen that there is a bridge built by the previous owner, and it has been there for 30 years. So, there is no need to make a new bridge and instead use the funds to repair the royal palace. Lloyd knew that the bridge is going to fall as he read it in the novel, but he can't just bring up the future events. The Queen asks him his opinion on this. Lloyd wanted to ask something about the official sitting beside the guild leader, and he asks the official how much was he paid. He was shocked and starts to panic and tries to decline it, but Lloyd knew as his reaction says it all. The Queen was furious and tells Lloyd that he has committed a grave mistake by groundlessly accusing a royal official. The Queen orders the soldiers to execute Lloyd. Lloyd was tied up with ropes and the executioner was ready to behead him. The Queen tells him that he is being punished as he has insulted her and a royal servant with his lies. Javier was seeing everything and was ready to draw his sword if anything would have happened. The Queen asks Lloyd if he had any last words. Lloyd tells the Queen to exterminate the guilty one's entire bloodline. Javier was getting ready for drawing his sword out for saving Lloyd. The Queen asks both of them if they agree with Lloyd, and they agreed with it. The Queen tells both of them to get ready as she will prove their innocence. Both of them are surrounded by mages. Lloyd had a very devil face on. The Queen asked them to summon the confession spell. Both of them tried to resist, but the mages used the confession spell on them. Lloyd was enjoying everything. Both of them were badly whipped and tied to the logs as a punishment. Lloyd tells them that their families have not done anything bad, so he pleaded to the Queen to spare them. And finally, the demon in Lloyd was satisfied just a little. The Queen immediately orders them to resume construction and orders all the workers in the kingdom to be a part of it. The mages used their gravitational magic on the stone blocks to make them lighter. And finally, the work on the suspension tower was completed. The next step was to get Bangul to get the suspension cables to connect the bridge. Lloyd launches Bangul on the other side where Padong was ready to catch it. And then complete the socket connection, also launch the other cables. Julian was impressed by his work. Javier tells him that he has also done a great job, and trained so well that he can now learn how to use a sword. And finally, the main road was connected with the help of Hamon, which was wielded by the fire mages. And here it goes, Lloyd announces that the construction was completed. The system informs him that he has received a bonus RP for this achievement. The Queen comes to inspect the bridge and is amazed by the view, so she gives the title of the Master Builder to Lloyd. Lloyd was assured that he will be able to completely pay off the debts of the estate with all that money. Now, only one hurdle is left, to escape the Queen's grip while solving Julian's problem. The Queen thinks of using him for some other work, and asks him to meet him in the royal palace and talk, and Lloyd accepts it. The Queen gives Lloyd a noble title and an estate befitting his abilities. All the nobles present there were infuriated by this. The Queen noticed their sentiments, and thinks that it will be a pain to try and quell their complaints. Lloyd thanks the Queen and asks her that he wants something bigger. The Queen asks him what do he want. Lloyd tells her if she deems his request reasonable then please withdraw the offer of the title and land. The Queen asks him to tell her what he wants, then she will decide it. Lloyd tells her that he will like thorough cleansing of the Royal Academy. The Queen was surprised by this and asks him to explain his words. Lloyd tells her that the Royal Academy is currently full of corruption, inequality, and despicable behavior as the higher-rank students are bullying the lower-rank students. Also, the educators are aware of this but still turn a blind eye as they get bribed by the parents of these higher-rank students. Everybody was shocked and Lloyd asks Javier to show something to the Queen. Javier takes out the proofs he has been collecting for the past 4 months and shows it to the Majesty. The nobles try to resist by saying that they are telling lies and trying to cover them. The Queen is furious and asks the royal guards to summon the confession spell on those who tried to cover the lies. The mages use the confession spell on the men, and once again they end up in the whipping punishment. At the Royal Academy, the royal guards have arrested all the culprits at the Queen's order. There was whole chaos in the Royal Academy, and Lloyd was enjoying the scene from a distance with a grim smile on his face. Out of nowhere, the kingdom's top sword master, Sir Kyle, appeared behind him. He tells Lloyd that the Queen has invited him to attend tomorrow night's banquet, and also she tells him that the Queen understands his tactics as he shifted her focus on the Royal Academy so that he can live his sweet lazy life. When the sword's master leaves the place, Lloyd asked Javier if he was able to sense his presence, but Javier denies it and says that it was impossible for someone like him to sense him, as he always hides his presence. Lloyd and Julian were having a conversation, and Lloyd tells him that he beat up Diego as he knew all this would happen. Julian was really happy and thanks Lloyd for helping him, due to which Julian's approval rating for Lloyd has increased by 65 points. The day after, there was a huge banquet arranged by the Majesty. The Queen calls Lloyd and calls him close and tells him that if he ever changed his mind she'll have everything ready for him, and also tells him to enjoy the banquet as it was arranged for him. Lloyd is happy as he thinks he can finally live a lazy happy life retired in the barony. He enjoys the delicacies, but Lloyd realizes that soon the Queen will turn evil and once again his dream will be in danger. Sir Kyle moves by him and says that the banquet will continue until the moon sets. Lloyd notices something and realizes that he read this line. It was from when the Queen is poisoned and lost one of her arms. It was the secret code used by those plotting to assassinate her. The Queen was resting after a long day. She had a headache, and she thought that she had drunk too much. She was tensed about the movement of Asfahan, their enemy state. Samarkand has assembled an army in his western lands. But according to her spies, it wasn't just a military exercise, but she was sure that marching through the wild terrain will be a suicide mission, and was trying to figure out what was he scheming. Suddenly a sharp headache. It was odd, and this time she was unable to control her mind. She identifies that somebody has used poison against her. She stands on her feet and yells out if there was someone out there. She was dizzy and lost control over her mind. Somebody opens the door, and the Queen gasps for help. It was Kyle. She was happy to see him, and she asks for help. Kyle draws his sword and tells her that it will be just fine if she died. The Queen was shocked. At the banquet, Lloyd identified what was going on and asked Javier to come with him. As they were walking in the corridor, Javier asked him what is he supposed to do now. Lloyd tells him that he has to knock out the sword master. Lloyd asks him how much time he can buy him. Javier replies that he can hold him for 3 minutes for max. Javier rushes and cracks the rod from the corridor, and Lloyd tells him it will work with him. As they reached the Queen's room, they saw all the soldiers lying dead on the ground. Here the sword master Kyle attacked the Queen, but even under the influence of the poison she was able to block the attack. Kyle kicks the Queen and was just going to deliver the last blow but is interrupted by Javier. Kyle counterattacks, but he is blocked by Javier using the candlestick, which impressed him. Javier uses the high-frequency mana circle collision and pushed him back. Javier and Kyle were attacking each other with equal force. Lloyd reaches out to the Queen. She is confused and asks him what was he doing there. He makes her quiet and uses the Azrahan core technique of mana absorption. Kyle tries to conjure the aura sword, but Javier stops him using by throwing the candlestick, as he knew it would be impossible to defeat him if he was successful in conjuring it. Javier uses the mana blast, but he was interrupted by Kyle. He was able to punch him in his abdomen, and was able to slice through the candlestick, and was able to deliver him huge damage. Lloyd counts on Javier, as if he loses it will be the end for them. Kyle was going to finish Javier, but Javier starts to rush toward him and dodge his attack. Javier calls out for Master Padong. Padong throws Javier's sword toward him. And now Javier finally has his sword, and now he starts to use his mana blasts on Kyle. Kyle was shocked as he flew in the air, and as he thought he recovered, Javier starts to spam mana blast, due to which he had no option but to run away. Lloyd was trying his best to absorb the poison mana from the Queen while coughing blood. The Queen was worried for Lloyd as he was willing to sacrifice himself for her. Here, Javier chased Kyle to the main hall, where Kyle misinforms the royal guards and orders them to kill Javier. Now, it was Javier against all the royal soldiers and Kyle. He uses all his skills to protect the Queen and Lloyd. Kyle was impressed by Javier, as he has never heard of a man capable of defeating a single royal guard, and Javier was able to swoop 3 at a time. Kyle orders all the royal guards to stop, and he has also conjured the aura sword. Javier was shocked to see the aura sword. Kyle attacks Javier using it, due to which Javier is backed off and receives critical damage. Javier was on the ground lying helpless as Kyle was coming to him to deliver the final blow. Lloyd successfully absorbed all the poison and was also in critical condition as he vomited black. The queen tells him that he has to do something or else he will die. She tells him to gather all the mana in his hand and then she will get rid of the poison by cutting his arm. Lloyd didn't want to lose his hand as it would make shoveling much harder for him. He grabs a knife and uses his mana blast skill to get rid of the poisonous mana as he shoots it into the air. Kyle sensed a huge mana explosion, and it must be Lloyd. Javier struggles a bit and was able to get up on his feet once again. Even though he is all tired and trembles with fear, he remembers the oath he gave to his master. Javier tells Lloyd that he has got triple mana heart and is on par with himself, and now he cannot be his guard if he was left behind by Lloyd. So he has to become more powerful and reach the sword master level. Lloyd tries to explain to Javier how he can become a sword master, but Javier tells him that he will find it out on his own without his help this time, and takes the oath to become a sword master on his own within a year. At present time, Kyle stabs Javier in his chest using the aura sword, but is surprised as if it would have been someone ordinary man who was stabbed by the aura sword. His whole body would have disintegrated in seconds. But Javier was able to take it and still survive, and he tells him that it was time he will die. A huge aura bursts and Javier screams helplessly. Javier reaches for his hand and holds it, and comes to know that the mana in his sword is flowing through his mana heart, making it even more powerful. Kyle is confused and lifts Javier and throws him into one corner of the room. Javier was helpless. Kyle inspects him and sensed no breathing and also no mana from him, and thinks he killed Javier and was going to kill the queen next. Javier once more gets on his feet and summons the aura sword. Kyle was not able to believe his eyes as he has never seen such a huge aura sword, but to his surprise, Javier's sword becomes even bigger. And Javier launches a powerful attack on him. Kyle tries to defend himself but loses his arm instead and falls on the ground helpless now. All the royal guards come in rushing. Javier asks them to step forward if any one of them thought they could defeat a sword master. Lloyd was on the ground unconscious and the queen was holding his hand and trying to help him with her mana as she thinks that she cannot let such a talent die. Lloyd opens his eyes, and the system tells him that he is now immune to all types of poison, and also he has another ability to supercharge with which he can absorb large amounts of mana from the surroundings. He makes an evil face to the queen is infuriated and by instinct she hits Lloyd. She asks him if he was alright, but Lloyd tells her that he was not able to do it as his body was completely drained out of mana. Lyle uses his supercharged skill and absorbs all the mana from the surrounding including the queen. The queen tries to wake him up but he was unconscious and she decides to give all of her mana to him as he was the one who saved her life. Lloyd absorbs every drop of mana and is finally awake. He felt his body to be very light. As he sees the queen, she was completely drained of mana. The queen tells him to go fast to rescue Javier, and she will ask for the details about this. She asks Lloyd to carry her back. Lloyd was set and ready to help Javier. The queen thinks that Javier will not be able to hold Kyle back for much longer, and she will have to build up her mana in order to fight Kyle. As they reach the main corridor, both of them were shocked to see Javier standing with his aura sword. The queen was astonished to see that Javier was able to defeat someone like Kyle. The queen immediately orders the royal guards to lower their weapons. Everyone was shocked, and she tells them that Kyle was the one who plotted her assassination and that both Lloyd and Javier saved her from their scheme. She orders the soldiers to show some respect to the heroes. The queen then orders them to investigate every single person who attended the banquet. Lloyd asks Javier if he was really able to become a sword master. Javier confirms him and tells him that he encounters dangerous situations frequently, and this is the only way he can fulfill his duty to protect him. Lloyd was relieved to see him safe and sound. The system informs him that his achievements have satisfied a hidden condition, and on every full night, he will be rewarded a certain amount of CP. The system shows him some funny titles he received. The system explains to him some perks of the titles he received. Lloyd was curious about the CP points and asked the system about them, but he says it all arrogantly, due to which the system is agitated and tells he will not tell him. Lloyd begs the system, and the system is happy and tells him that the CP can be used to defy the law of physics and attain absolute power to summon the ending spoiler. Lloyd is confused about what even ending spoiler means. Later that day, Lloyd was exhausted due to recent incidents. Julian asks Lloyd if he had any idea who was behind the conspiracy. Lloyd tells him that he has no idea, as when the interrogation took place the Queen tried a confession spell, but they were unsuccessful to get the truth, as the conspirators had some kind of protection spell on them. And thanks to this, he will not be able to leave the royal capital anytime soon. Lloyd wanted to wrap this up, but there were not enough details about the incident in the book, as it was probably explained in the next edition. On top of that, everything happened 3 years early in this world. He knew that he has his knowledge of the future, and his only weapon is going to be useless. He remembers his newly gained ability. The ending spoiler. Julian asks him if he knew where is Javier. Lloyd tells him that he was summoned by the Queen separately since he became a sword master. Julian is shocked, and Lloyd tells him that there is no need to be shocked, as Javier was the one who took down Kyle. Julian tells him that he thought they were able to capture Kyle with the help of the royal guards. Julian becomes sad, as that must be the reason for the Queen to summon Javier. At the royal court, the Queen appreciates his bravery and skills of Javier. She tells him that the position of captain of the royal guard is vacant, and as such, she commands him to take her side and become the captain from the very moment onwards. Javier asks his forgiveness to the Majesty, as he was Baron Frontera's knight, and he cannot leave his side. The Queen tells him that she was not asking him to join, but she was ordering him, and tells him that disobeying her orders is tantamount to treason. Javier humbly requests her to please allow him to send his final farewell to his Lord Baron. The Queen is surprised by his elegancy to say he will rather die. Javier pleads for her mercy, and the Queen had no choice but to respect his wish. As Javier walks through the corridor, he meets Julian and asks him what did the Queen say. Javier told him that he will always be a knight of the Frontera family. Julian was really happy about this. At night, Lloyd was lying down inspecting the system, checking out his new abilities. He realizes that it was a full moon and it was the time when he will receive CP. The system informs him that he will receive CP for the 5 titles he had. Lloyd is very excited to use his skill, as he thinks that the future will be really good and he will have a very good lazy chill life. As soon as he clicked the button, he was transported into a black void. He was spooked out due to the darkness and called out for the system, and the scene changed. There was fire everywhere. He was confused as this place looked familiar. But everything was destroyed. He yells and tries to search for people, but nobody answered his calls. He starts to panic and runs to the mansion. He sees the dead body of the Baron and the Baroness, and sees his future self crying out loud and saying that if he had come just a little earlier they would have been saved. Lloyd was terrified by this and asked the system what kind of terrible ending was this. He notices something and turns and sees a huge cloud of monsters approaching the city. Javier steps in and withdraws his aura sword and goes berserk as he attacked the swarm. Lloyd thinks that Javier got rid of them in an instant, but little he knew, more of the insects started to attack them. Lloyd is back in the present and is miserable. He asks the system what he just saw right now. The system tells him whether he could believe it or not, but to think about what he has to lose if he was wrong. Lloyd gets up on his feet and rushes towards the Queen. He tells the Queen that the entire Cremona region will be reduced to dirt, and tells her that they must mobilize the troops and prepare for the calamity. The Queen was not able to believe Lloyd. Lloyd explains to her that it was the work of the enemy nation, Asfahan, and they are trying to set up a monster domino to destroy the kingdom. He tells her that they were stamping out the monsters in the western wilderness, taking away their habitat, due to which the monsters move towards the west and drive another group of monsters. And this goes on like a domino effect. Lloyd knew that according to the book, this incident will happen 3.5 years later. Besides, this should have happened much farther than their Frontera estate. All the timing and the details he knew from the novel were messed up. The Queen thinks of it as a possibility, however she wanted to know how Lloyd knows about this. Lloyd was trying to think of a reason, but the Queen tells him that he is suspicious of Asfahan more than Asfahan. Lloyd tells her that he had some ties, a blood pact with the orcs of the wastelands, and they sent a carrier pigeon to inform him. She asks him about the assassination incident, and Lloyd tells her that Javier taught him some secret magic to absorb mana, as they were together since childhood. The Queen is suspicious, but Lloyd activates the perk of the title, due to which the Queen had all her trust in Lloyd. The Queen grants him 500 men of the White Cavalry, as well as 50 wizards for support. Lloyd is happy and thanks the Queen for such generosity. The Queen asks him what will he give her in return for her favor, and Lloyd tells her that he will restore her honor by proclaiming to the world that the foresight and resolution in this matter were all hers, which was tarnished due to the assassination attempt. The Queen was pretty impressed by Lloyd. Now, Lloyd and Javier were ready. As they were riding a horse, Lloyd tells him in a funny way due to the air. Javier tells him that he can understand him and asks him to proceed as he can understand him. Lloyd tells him that they must arrive at the Frontera estate in 5 days. Lloyd knew that Javier was now much more powerful and can alone take down a small nation alone. But he knew that he can insert fear in humans, but they were now against the mindless creatures. Lloyd asked Padong to meet him at the decided destination. It seemed like Lloyd had the plan to save the Frontera estate. They finally were able to reach the estate and sees the monsters are starting to come by. In the village, the farmers noticed the huge cloud of monsters approaching their estate. Lloyd tells the farmer to get hurry and escape into their houses and asked him to bring him a lid for the pot, the biggest one he could find. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching.